Wow, are you serious? Oh, gosh.
All right, and then
I'm Bethany Kopolis. I'm Assistant Director of Student Life at Northlake College and a Student Government Association Advisor at Northlake and incoming Region 2 Advisor as well. And I've been to 3 TJCSGs.
very good. They always get to know about us, don't they? All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name's Kim Brown. Pretty much I now have the opportunity where I get to travel and train different students in various topics of leadership. And I guess for Brookhaven, I've had the opportunity to come here quite a few times, almost on an annual basis, to talk about parliamentary procedure. Now, a lot of you guys just came back from TJCSGA. And you had an opportunity, maybe for your first time, to really see the flow of parliamentary procedure happening and how accurate it might be occurring. Now, at TJCSGA, were there times that it just went perfectly, or were there times whenever they didn't know where they were at? Maybe somebody made a motion and somebody else made a motion that couldn't be made. Did that kind of stuff happen sometimes? Yes? Okay. And at that point, did the president, the presiding officer, did they slow down the assembly? Did they just keep going and talk louder? Or did they consult with their other officers to find out what they should be doing? What did they do? They consulted usually? Okay, very good. All right, so a couple things about parliamentary procedure and give you guys a little bit about my background and my experience. Whenever I was a student in college, I was part of a group called Residence Hall Association. And pretty much it was for the different colleges and universities that have residence halls. And it was exactly like Student Government Association. And I got involved at the state level, then I got involved at the regional level, and then the international level. And it was a wonderful experience. And I remember at my first conference that was called No Frills. So we had the fun conferences like TJCSGA, everybody went to, everybody had fun. And then we had what we call a No Frills conference. At the No Frills conference, it was only the officers went, and pretty much that's where we would decide who was going to be officers for the next year, who was going to be the awards that we presented at the national level. And it was just this business meeting, just constantly reviewing and debating on what awards we wanted to send forward. Well, I remember being at this conference, and I was over with the National Residence Hall Honorary, and I came over to the meeting that the other people were running. And the presiding officer at the time, if you did not know your parliamentary procedure, he would just not acknowledge you. Because if you tried to raise your hand and you said the wrong thing, which as an officer, if you don't say the right motion at the right time or the right wording, out of order, and he would move on to the next person. He just kept on saying out of order and move on. And I'm sitting there like, I don't think this is fair. And so I looked at my person that we called the NCC, which they were the person that was the speaking representative. At TJCSGA, you guys each have, your school has, one vote as a school. Each member doesn't get a vote. You guys understand that concept? And just the same way, at our school, we had a vote. And we had these placards. And so pretty much there was one placard for our school, and you had to stand up with the placard for the university and say, wait, I'm like, Brandon, give me that placard now. And because I was just getting furious watching this one school, and it was a private school college, and these people did not know how to say what they wanted to say. So every time they tried to put in their input, they got shot down. And I got really irritated. So I took that placard and I was like, point of order and point of information. If you want to do this, you should say it this way. And then the person realized that because I couldn't actually address him in the assembly, I was just making my voice known as what they should do. The whole concept of Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedure is that the minority in the group has the right. Everyone has the right to speak. Majority will always rule as far as like the consensus of the majority of the people, whatever they want to do has what's going to happen. But every member should have the right to talk. So if you're a presiding officer, it's important that not only you know the flow of the meeting, but you also want to make sure that you're going to meet with the people and help them. You're kind of the teacher. Okay, your advisors, when they're advising you, they have the opportunity to teach you. Well, when you're the president of a club, you become the ultimate teacher. You're more of a teacher as a president than the advisor is. Because who should the advisor be teaching? I mean, although they're teaching everybody, but who do they directly teach?
The
president. And then the president goes off and kind of uses that same knowledge. And that same skill set of the advisor teaching the president teaching the other officers teaching the members, how does that play in whenever you guys become managers someday? Do you guys see how that's a direct link to your future supervising experience? You obviously, can I manage all of you in this room effectively? No. The average manager can only effectively do 5 to 7 people. So as a manager, they're going to work with 5 to 7 people. Those people then go work with their 5 to 7, and it's a trickle-down effect from the top. okay? And so parliamentary procedure allows us in a large group to be able to communicate, to be able to talk, and to be able to come up with the collective wisdom. Okay, because although my thoughts are so brilliant, the reality is that if we all sat around brainstorming, we could come up with something much better than what I could do by myself. And that's what parliamentary procedure allows us to do. Now, how many of you guys have a constitution for your home SGA's campus? How many of you guys have that constitution? Raise your hands. All right, so that's a good majority. So if you're ever a member in an organization, I think you need to read that constitution at least once. But if an officer, every meeting you come to, you should have that constitution with you. Because sometimes different things will happen. Now, wherever your constitution leaves off, okay, so your constitution, wherever it leaves off, the standard in the industry is Robert's Rules of Order. So your constitution, probably in the bylaw, says, and it refers to Robert's Rules of Order, the most newly revised edition, which right now is the 11th edition. Okay? And some of the issues that we used to see at TJCSJ, ironically, not like they consulted TJCSJ, but some of the issues we used to see people saying the wrong wording, they went in and very clear, very specifically clarified some of those things that people were doing wrong because people didn't understand maybe the old English context of the 10th edition, and so they went with the 11th edition. So what happens is Robert's Rules does not supersede your constitution. Say if Robert's Rules says you need 2/3 to amend a constitution. So 2/3 of the people have to agree to amend a constitution. If that's what Robert's Rules says, but if in your constitution when you're writing it you say only majority, that's all that's needed. Your constitution supersedes this book. Because sometimes people say, you know what, well that doesn't really work for us, so we want to give ourselves more flexibility. So you choose to do that. Now, what does your school require for quorum of membership to have a meeting?
50 plus 1.
50 plus 1, so majority. Does anybody else have something different? Now, who is that majority? When you say, is it 50, is it majority of members? So your entire student body, what's your student body made up of?
The SGA or?
No, because everybody that's a student at your college is officially a member of your student organization. So 15,000? 13,000? Okay, so do you guys get 6,501 students showing up to your meetings? Okay. Because if you actually guys, literally, quorum of student government association, when you say members, because when you go and meet with the administration, do you say we have 10 members that attend the SGA meeting, or do you say we represent 13,000 members? What do you say when you meet with your administration?
We represent 13,000.
You're representing 13,000. But obviously, do we think any SGA, anywhere in the world, is going to get 51% of their student body to show up to the meeting?
No.
No. Okay? So that's where the Constitution has to identify that. Now, when you identify in your Constitution, you have members, but you probably also have voting members, right? So in your Constitution, does it break that up? And if not, you want to make sure your Constitution shows that you represent the whole student body, and all members, meaning every student can show up to any SGA meeting and have an opportunity to speak, but who are the ones that have the vote? Do you call them senators, representatives at your school? Do officers have the right to vote? So that's where you identify usually who your voting bracket is. Most schools are going to have senators. Some will be from at-large. Some will come from student organizations, as well as they're going to let their officers have voting power. And then they're going to say 51% of that. Well, now, how many student organizations do you guys have here at Brookhaven? 16? Okay, so 16 senators from student organizations. How many senators from at-large do you guys do? Do you guys do that? Do you have senators at large? 3? Okay, so 19. And then do officers have a chance to vote at the meetings? So how many officers?
We have 7.
7. So we have, that's 16, 3, and 7, 26? So 26. So how many people at their very first meeting have to be there for them to be able to have quorum? They have 26 voting people. 14 people have to come. Now, being a practical person, one of the things that sometimes I would realize is as the semester comes, some clubs are like, we could care less about SGA. Sometimes if your SGA is not giving them money, they don't want to show up. Well, those people not showing up, well, that affects your quorum and affects your ability to have a meeting. If you can't have a meeting, that affects your ability to be, proactive on your campus. Because your administration is like, you guys haven't even had one meeting this year. Your SGA minutes are so important to your college administration. They're actually a part of the accreditation process for your degrees when you two graduate next week, or in a month. They're actually part of the accreditation process for your college to be accredited. That's how important your SGA is on your college campuses. So, knowing that, I would always encourage you guys to look at your Constitution and put in kind of loopholes in the sense that after you miss 2 meetings, you lose your voting rights in a semester or in a year. So clubs that never show up, they lose voting rights, which means now your quorum. So last week the art club didn't show up, so now our membership is 25 people. And now how many do we need for quorum? 25 people? 13. Okay, and so slowly the people that don't show up, we would take them on. So it's really important for you to look at your Constitution and say, how does our Constitution affect our ability to have membership? Do any of you guys ever just have meetings and don't even know if you have quorum? Anybody ever do that? Because the important thing is you gotta have quorum. Before we do anything else, basic parliamentary procedure, you have to have quorum. Because if you have no quorum, no business can take place at a meeting. The only business, literally, you call the meeting to order, you find out you don't have quorum, and then you can either recess, maybe let's get a 15-minute recess, so everybody can get out their cell phones and start calling people. We can, decide to have the meeting at a later time that day or that week, as far as the adjournment until then, or we close the meeting. Those are the only things that you can do. So if you have an organization and you guys need to approve to donate $500 to this charity, you can't do it without having quorum. Now, exceptions for that. How many of you guys, your officers a lot of times make decisions without the membership? You guys make big decisions, money decisions. How many of your officers do that? Be honest, do you guys? No? Okay, wow, that's impressive. That's an impressive organization. Well, a lot of times with your organization, they're going to set a money limit. That the officers, the majority of officers can decide to spend up to $500 without consulting the membership. And that's, once again, something you put in your Constitution. So how many of you guys have read your Constitution in your clubs? Raise your hands high. How many of you guys can tell me what certain things are, like how impeachment procedures in your Constitution? The officers, look at that. No. Maybe they've had to do that, or they want to make sure they didn't get impeached. So read your constitutions, because the very fundamental part of parliamentary procedure is knowing how you operate. Your Constitution is the #1 principle guiding document telling you how to operate. The number 2, when it doesn't answer, is going to be Robert's Rules of Order. So with that, we're going to kind of jump into this. What are your goals for your meetings when you hold an SGA meeting? What are your goals?
Give out information.
Give out information.
Making decisions.
Making decisions. What else?
We mostly try and get the voice of the student body. So when
Get the
they
voice of
come,
the student body.
our style of meeting is very open to letting the General Assembly express concerns, be very vocal with their opinions, offer ideas. So that's
I like that.
at the heart of our meetings, at least at this level, we definitely want to have an openness to the student body.
That's very good. That's very good. Because if your SGA is only about saying, hey guys, here are the next 5 dates of the events we're going to do, and here's a sign-up sheet, is that considered an efficient or an effective meeting? Because could you have done that to email?
Yeah.
So you always want to make sure you're doing something, deciding business, taking concerns. So if we get the student body's concerns, what do we do with those concerns? What should we do? And we have a couple options. What could we do when we get those student concerns? I come to the meeting and I say, I hate the vending machines because they always are doing this, or they don't have my favorite soda, which was true at my college.
At that point, I know speaking from past experience, we pretty much try and get maybe a motion to remedy it.
Okay.
And then if we can bring it to a vote, that's something the General Assembly is interested in pursuing, then we'll take that route.
Okay.
But if we don't really get some resonance with the rest of the General Assembly, it just kind of is just expressed and just kind of dies.
It does. Okay. Okay. So sometimes when somebody brings up a concern, there's a real obvious answer that we could, like a lot of times if you come with a concern, I like the people to also come with a solution. I don't like just to have people whining about what's going on. So I'm like, well, what would be your recommended solution? Doesn't mean I'm going to take your solution, but if it's the best solution and prevails, we're going to take it. So one, we could decide on that this is an issue we want to follow up on. And if it's an issue we want to follow up on, where do we then send it? If we're not going to take action today, but we're going to follow up on it, who would we do it with? Who would we send it to? Well, what would we create? What?
Administration of college.
No. What would we create?
A committee?
A committee. So committees are very effective, but a lot of times, I think you might at the regional level or TJCSG level, they don't feel effective, do they? So your committee should always do something. If you've got a committee and they're not producing results, what should you do with that committee? Okay, that was way too many voices at once. I heard an answer over here.
Notify the committee.
Okay. Let's get rid of it, or what do we do? Let's start giving them something to do. Because sometimes your constitution identifies a standing committee. What does a standing committee mean?
It's permanent.
It's an always committee. This committee is always happening. They should always be fine combing. They should always be trying to improve. And then other times we might appoint a special committee or like a task force, and this is a one-time committee. Okay, and this is a committee that's specifically focused on this student concern that they want a new soda in the soda machines, and we're going to have a committee for that. But this committee, after they get that soda, either it's in the machine or there's no chance it's going to happen, it's gone. Okay, and so we want to look at that. Now, in a well-run organization, what's going to happen? What do you guys think a well-run meeting would look like?
Chaos. I'm just kidding.
You know, people that always say that we function best in chaos. I'm like, no, you really don't. Because you know, sometimes people think that, but sometimes you're going to lose some of your best members. Your members that come who want to be organized, who want to be efficient, and the rest of you guys are like, wow, we're getting creative in here. They walk away. Why do people join student organizations?
To make a difference.
To make a difference? Why else? To get involved? Why else? You two are graduating. What would be a good reason? Hinting that you're graduating.
Well,